the origins of Benicia Black Lives Matter is that it came from two different avenues, two different roads. I was traveling on one road, Brandon was traveling on another road, and eventually, you know, those roads intersected. So I will tell you about my road, Brandon will tell you about his road, and then I will introduce our Negro National Anthem. So my road, the road that I took to the goal and objective, was when I moved to Benicia about 19 years ago, and my son was in middle school, and we basically moved to Benicia because it was in the schools were good, but we were losing our house in Vallejo, so we luckily were able to buy a house in Benicia. And when my son went to junior high, he started having some problems with a group of kids who kept teasing him and calling him the N-words. I'm walking down First Street, and two white women come up to me and say, "Why are you here?" And I'm like, "What do you mean, why am I here? Shouldn't you be in Oakland or Richmond or Vallejo?" And I'm like, "Really? Why should I be there?" And that, in addition to, you know, going to Safeway and some white man calling me, "Hey gal, can you give me a cart?" Had to call a march, had to do a protest. And of course, even as I was setting up the protest, I had white people coming up to me saying, "Why are you causing dissension in Benicia? There's no racism in Benicia," blah, blah, blah. So that's pretty much how, on my end, how Benicia Black Lives Matter started. It went forward to doing a resolution toward for the city council, and I will leave it there. And I want to thank the city council. I want to thank everybody I want to thank everybody on the city council who voted for our resolution, who saw that this was needed, who saw it was necessary. Please give them a hand, because you know what? Part of making Juneteenth a festival, a holiday, was on the resolution. So I thank the city council so much who voted for the resolution. Go ahead, Brandon.
I moved to Benicia when my son was 1 week old from Emeryville. As many people probably do, one of the reasons I came to Benicia was because of the schools. But as we're house hunting, one of the things that I wrote about for Huffington Post was what it was like to house hunt as a person of color. I had a whole lot of anxiety about coming to this particular little town. Originally, I'm from Las Vegas, specifically from West Las Vegas, which is the only place that black folks could live when my grandparents left the South. That sort of history carries with me everywhere I go, because there's a history of organizing and protest. And so I, by trade, am a civil rights attorney and an organizer. I had wrote this piece. I wrote this piece about what it was like to house hunt as a person of color, because, as I said, I had a lot of anxiety about moving here. I remember, I think the first couple of days in the house, one of my neighbors left a pie or something next to the door. I'm from the inner city, so I wasn't really accustomed to that. I was like, there's no way I'm gonna eat that. This is strange. But I say all that to say that I very early on, even before I got here, decided that for my children to feel safe here, that I was gonna have to be involved. So when George Floyd's murder happened, my children had already been to protest again every year of their lives, and I saw that there was this discussion about, 8 can't wait, which essentially was this: if a police department adopts these 8 principles, then in theory that police department will become less violent towards black folks and other disenfranchised people. But in truth, many of those principles had already been adopted by departments like the LAPD and others. And so I wrote city council, the mayor, and the chief of police talking about why a can't wait would be insufficient. That led to a couple meetings with the chief of police, and former mayor Elizabeth Patterson asked me sort of what things that I think should be put in place. And because this is work that I do every day, I started trying to put together these different component parts that would turn into the resolution. And in those conversations, I ended up being connected with Namat, and we had some conversations. There was already some things brewing, and so sort of here we are now. But I say that to say that it took a whole lot of different things to happen. It took a certain composition of the city council to get the resolution passed, which maybe it would have been passed today, maybe it wouldn't. But nonetheless, it was passed, and now we have to be holding folks accountable. So part of that accountability was asking the current city council, which voted unanimously to raise the freedom flag for the first time, which we did yesterday. I think it's important that we center this particular event in the social and political context. So right now, you have a tremendous amount of energy being directed towards opposition to critical race theory, which anybody who's been to graduate school knows that critical race theory is not being taught in elementary school or middle school, etc. It was actually a class that I had to volunteer to take in law school, right? But that grappling is coming after the longest sustained protest in American history, which came as a result of George Floyd's murder, right? And there's been all this discourse about how we've moved forward. Benicia Black Lives Matter is engaged in conversations with the school district and other places to ensure that American history is actually being taught. Mayor Young mentioned that he didn't learn about Juneteenth as a youth. Those things are not accidental. The way in which black folks and other disenfranchised peoples have been erased from history is not accidental. So I want to center this particular moment, this particular celebration, this once in a lifetime. There'll never be another first Juneteenth in Benicia, the third capital of California. So we need to take this energy, this joyous energy, and continue to move forward towards holding the city and the county accountable to disenfranchised peoples. Thank you.
Thank you, and I want to thank everybody for being here again, and thank the Lord for giving us the time to reflect on what has actually happened. Going back in history, in 1863, Abraham Lincoln issued the proclamation, the Emancipation Proclamation. And about 11 months later, Congress ratified that. At that point, all slaves in the United States were declared free. 2 years later, that news got to Texas, delivered by a General Granger, and about 2,000 men who were needed to keep order. And General Granger issued a declaration called General Process 3, which declared all the slaves in Texas free. I can only imagine what that felt like. I certainly can't imagine that now. To know that you could wake up the next day and you didn't have to worry about having one of your children sold off, or possibly having your daughter or your wife summoned to the big house to to meet the master's wishes. Reality is slavery happened. And slavery is part of what built this country. And the reality is that we need to look at all of our history honestly so we can prosper and grow as a country. And I think my ancestors, which my mother was from Texas, I'm fairly sure that my grandfather was born a slave. My ancestors would ask that we take the time and the effort and the energy to honor them by growing and learning for ourselves. And knowing that that is what is the only thing that's going to move this country and us as a people forward to a better, and to reach the promise that was laid out in the Declaration, was reinforced in the Emancipation, but has never been reached in reality.
My name is Emmanuel Richardson, and today we will be celebrating Juneteenth, which is now a federal holiday. And to understand Juneteenth, you have to understand slavery. And to understand slavery, you have to understand the Middle Passage.
Somebody tell me why were we treated so bad? Oh, I wanna know, I need to know, and I gotta know, why were we treated so bad? Somebody tell me why were we treated so bad? Oh, I wanna know, I need to know, and I gotta know, why were we treated so bad? Captured by my own brother, placed in these wrinkly old chains, placed on a strange vessel with all these aches and pains. Somebody tell me why were we treated so bad? Oh, I wanna know, I need to know, and I gotta know, why were we treated so bad? Traveled down the Middle Passage, across the 7 seas, placed on an auction block, strange faces staring at me. Somebody tell me why were we treated so bad? Oh, I wanna know, I need to know, and I gotta know, why were we treated so bad?
Thank you, Brandon. It's not right that you make me follow the Omega chants. So I guess my message before I read the proclamation is that be the change you want to see. Get involved. Register to vote. Apply for a city board or commission. Run for office. You know, we need to make changes that can only happen with your participation. Let me read the proclamation in recognition of Juneteenth Freedom Day, June 19th, 2021. Whereas Juneteenth is the oldest known celebration commemorating the abolition of slavery in the United States, and the emancipation of African American slaves throughout the Confederate South, Union soldiers landed at Galveston, Texas on June 19, 1865, with the news that the Civil War had ended and the enslaved were now free, more than 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was issued on January 1, 1863. Until that day, slavery had been relatively unaffected in Texas by the Emancipation Proclamation, and Texas was viewed as a safe haven for slave owners to relocate with their slaves because the state experienced no large-scale fighting or significant presence of Union troops. And whereas on the first Juneteenth, a number that combines June and 19th, the people of Texas were read General Order Number 3, which stated, quote, "The people of Texas are informed that in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of rights and the rights of property between masters and slaves, and the connection heretofore existing between them becomes that between employer and free laborer." The Juneteenth announcement was met with jubilation that spread throughout the country as African Americans relocated to neighboring states and became reacquainted with family. And whereas the first Juneteenth celebration was a time for reassurance, prayer, and the gathering of family members, Juneteenth continued to be widely observed in Texas decades later, with many former slaves and descendants making an annual pilgrimage to Galveston, Texas. Today, Juneteenth continues to grow within communities and organizations throughout the country. Numerous national and local Juneteenth organizations have organized with the common mission of promoting and cultivating knowledge and appreciation of African American history and culture, while encouraging continuous self-development and respect for all people and cultures. And whereas California Assembly Bill number 1749, approved and filed with the Secretary of State on July 12, 2002, required the governor of the state of California to proclaim the third Saturday in June each year as Juneteenth National Freedom Day, a day of observance, and would urge the people of California to join in celebrating this day to honor and reflect on the significant role that African Americans have played in the history of the United States and how they have enriched society through their steadfast commitment to promoting brotherhood and equality. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Steve Young, Mayor of the City of Benicia, on behalf of the City Council of the City of Benicia, hereby proclaim June 19, 2021 as Juneteenth Freedom Day in the City of Benicia, and encourage residents, schools, businesses, and community groups to celebrate Juneteenth as a day of remembrance and celebration. Thank you very much.
Before I start, I just want to say that I am just a vessel. The work that created the position that allowed me to be here was all of the people that you've heard from today, all of the citizens of Benicia, and I think I'm living proof that if you believe in change, if you work to create change, change will happen. So here I am.
My name is Mariano Sykes. I'll be reciting a poem me and my uncle wrote called A Formal Introduction to the White Supremacists. So, to all the racists, white supremacists, and bigots, let me formally introduce myself. My first name signifies the potential future of my manhood. My middle name represents the infinite capacity of my intelligence. My last name, well, let's just say it defines the flow of my existence. I am the result of the Chichen Itza, the tip of the San Felipe Nuevo. I am the beautiful, majestic phoenix that rose from the dark ashes. You really want to know me, don't you? Well, I'm the fragments of the freedom fights. Which one? You figure it out. I am the foundation of the Caribbean of San Juan. Some of the names you call me: mutt, mulatto, mixed breed, bastard, or charity case. I'm actually the caramel flavor from a black coffee with great tasting cream added. My smile demonstrates my power. My hug humbles the hate that destroys. Now don't get it twisted. Don't let these curls in my head fool you. There's some collard greens in my kitchen with hot water cornbread and spices not measured but dashed and taste tested. Yeah. My ancestors blew the smoke and danced to tribal rituals. and sang the songs giving contribute to the creator. Racist, you don't know me. So who am I? I am the image of the wrongfully and unjustly slain. I am hunted down and lynched like an animal while jogging, hung and ripened strange fruit. The picture on XL white t-shirts, the paint on red concrete, the place of many candles, teddy bears, and flowers. I am feared for my misplaced anger. I am misunderstood and biased by my teachers. I am slaughtered by the supposed community protectors and over-incarcerated by the crow reincarnated. I am the strong, powerful potential, mostly untapped. I am a leader who can save if you listen. I could be a contributor if you let me. I am a human being. I am fearfully made in the spitting image of my creator. I am the co-author and reader of a living book already written. I am more than a conqueror. And yet, you don't even hear me. That 400-year multi-generational hate spirit is so ingrained in you that it's truly impossible for you to even know me. And with all that, I can't even hate you. To be honest, I feel sorry for you. So let me introduce myself. My name is Amariano Rashad Sykes, aka Shot.
Well, it's time for us to wrap up this amazing first part of Benicia's first Juneteenth festival. Can we get a amen or a hallelujah? Wonderful, wonderful show. Before we go, we definitely want to again thank Ms. Roz and Miss Kashana. Oh, there she is, and everybody who worked on everybody you see with a red apron on, who helped put this Juneteenth festival together. And we want to thank the band, the wonderful jazz band, the Omegas, the Mega